Hello class, welcome to lesson 6.3, which is all about elimination using addition and subtraction. By the end of this lesson, you should be able to solve systems of equations by using elimination with addition, as well as solve systems of equations by using elimination with subtraction. Okay, so let's talk about how to solve by eliminating. So first, you want to write the system so like terms with the same or opposite coefficients are aligned. Okay, so that means you're going to have at least two equations. So when you have x in one, you want the x variable of the second equation to be right below it. I'll show you what that looks like a little bit later. Your second step is going to be either add or subtract the equations, trying to get rid of one of the variables, okay? That means if you get rid of one of the variables, you only have one variable left, so you can solve for it. Once you've solved for that, you substitute that value from step 2 into one of the equations and solve for the other variable. Then you write the solution as an ordered pair, just like we did yesterday. So I recommend taking a screenshot of this key concept to help you remember. So let's look at using elimination to solve these systems of equations. Step 1, make sure your variables, the like variables, are vertical with each other. So I have both of my x's together. They're right above each other. My y's are vertical with each other. And then my whole numbers are on the other side of the equal sign. So they're kind of a little shifted over, so if that bothers you, feel free to rewrite it. What we're looking to do is get rid of one of the variables. So we want to look, if we add these two equations together, do we end up with just one variable? So you look first at your x's. We have negative 4x plus 4x. Negative 4 plus 4, that makes that 0, right? So that's awesome. We got rid of our x. And then we're left with 3y plus a negative 5y. 3 plus a negative 5 gives me negative 2y. Whenever we have a 0 minus something or 0 plus something, we don't really need that 0, so I'm going to get rid of that. And then I look, I have equal sign, and I have a negative 3 plus 5. So that becomes a positive 2. All right, adding these two equations together means that we can now solve for y. So I can divide both sides by a negative 2. I'm left with y equals negative 1. Okay, so this is just like yesterday when I would give you the picture of the two lines and I'd say, what's the solution? And if there was one solution, you would tell me what that ordered pair was. That's what we're looking for right now, okay? So we've solved for y. Now let's solve for x. So you take your y value, you pick one of these two equations, doesn't matter which. I'll just go with the top one, negative 4x plus 3y. I plug in 1 for y, equals negative 3. If I combine, or if I simplify a little bit, now I just have one variable again, and I can solve for x. So if I do minus 3, I have negative 4x equals negative 6. Oh, and I messed up. This should be a negative 1. Sorry about that. So we have a negative 1. That makes this minus 3. So we add 3. All right. And then we have negative 4x equals 0. Divide both sides by a negative 4. 0 divided by a negative 4 just gives us 0. So our ordered pair is going to be our x value first, so 0, and then our y value, and that is our final answer. Okay, let's try another one. So I look, I have 4y plus 3x equals 22, and I have 3x minus 4y equals 14. Notice that my variables are not lined up. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to rewrite it 3x plus 4y equals 22. I'm going to say 3x minus 4y equals 14. Now my variables are lined up and I can look. I have a positive 3x and a positive 3x. So if I add those together, I'm still going to have an x value. And I have a positive 4y and a negative 4y. If I add those together, they will cancel, right? Positive 4, negative 4. So I know I can just add these two together. So I have 6x equals 4y plus a negative 4y is just 0. I don't have to write that. And then we have 38, 36. My math is off today, guys. Okay, so we have 36. Now I have 6x equals 36. So how do I finish solving this? I divide both sides by 6. I'm left with x equals 6. If I keep going, I want to see what does y equal. So I pick one of my equations. I usually just pick the top one, but sometimes one is easier than the other. So you can look and see. And instead of 3x, I'm going to say 3 times 6, because x equals 6. And now I'm going to solve for y. So I have 18 plus 4y equals 22. If I tee that up, I can do minus 18, minus 18. I'm left with 4y equals 4. If I keep going, divide both sides by 4. I have y equals 1. My final answer, I write my x value first in my ordered pair, and then my y value. And that is the solution to this system of equations. Now, if you're wondering, that's a lot of steps, how do I know if my answer is right? You just go back and you plug those numbers into your equation. So if we say 4, and then we said times 6 plus 3 times, 4 times 1 is y is 1. 4 times 1 plus 3 times 6, that is 4 plus 18, which is 22. So I know my solution is correct. So you can check it by plugging them back in. Go ahead and try one on your own. Hopefully you said that the answer was the ordered pair 2, 1. If you had questions on that, feel free to ask. Let's look at our second example. We have a verbal expression, and it is the sum of two numbers is negative 10. Negative 3 times the first number minus the second number equals 2. Find the numbers. Okay, so this is the same idea. We're going to have two different equations. So let's look at our first sentence. That's going to be our first equation. We have the sum, remember sum means addition, of two numbers is negative 10. So the sum of two numbers, I'm just going to pick x and y, equals negative 10. Our second equation, negative 3 times the first number, negative 3 times the first number is going to be negative 3x minus the second number. Okay, so just the second number by itself equals 2. I now have my two equations, and I look, if I add my x's together, I'm still going to have a number with an x. If I add my y's together, those are going to cancel, so I'm going to go ahead and add those. X plus a negative 3x is negative 2x. Y plus a negative y is 0, equals negative 10 plus 2 is negative 8. If I keep going and I divide both sides by negative 2, I have x equals 4. So that's one of my numbers. Now I have to solve for the other number. So I can say 4 plus, or actually, let's use 4 plus y equals negative 10. And if I solve that and subtract 4 from both sides, I have y equals negative 14. So my two answers are 4 and 14. Okay? If you, it's pretty similar to what we did in the first example. The only difference, you have to set up the equations. Okay, go ahead and try this one on your own. Hopefully you said that the two numbers were negative 3, 2. If you have any questions on that, be sure to star it and ask, or make some sort of mark. Let's look at example 3. we're still using elimination to solve the systems of equations. So now we have a positive 4x plus 2y equals 28, and we have a positive 4x plus 3y equals 18. If we add these together, we're going to end up with 8x minus y equals 46. We still have two variables, so we know we can't add them together in order to get it to be a single variable. That means we have to subtract, okay? Now when you subtract, it's very important. You go 4x minus 4x. That's going to be 0, right? Then you have 2y minus a negative 3y. Sorry, I covered up the negative. Minus negative 3y. So minus a minus becomes a plus. 2 plus 3, that's 5y. I no longer need this 0. Equals, remember, we have 28 minus 18. That is 10. Okay? Now we have 5y equals 10. So y equals 2, because you divide both sides by 5. Now from there, you can go back to either one of your equations, it doesn't matter which one you pick, and solve for x. So I say 4x plus 2y equals 28. So 4x plus 4 equals 28. 4x equals 24. I'm going to start phasing out all of the teeing it up and showing you every step because we've been doing it for so long. Now we have 4x equals 24. In order to get x by itself, I have to divide by 4. If you still need help with solving equations and the teeing it up process, please be sure to ask, okay? In our last step, we have an x, we have a y. We are going to write it as an ordered pair. Because remember, we're talking about two different lines here, and this ordered pair tells us where those two lines intersect. Go ahead and try this one on your own. Hopefully you determined the answer was 2, negative 6. If you have any questions about that, be sure to ask. Let's look at our last example, example 4. Tamara and Adeline are throwing a birthday party for their friend. Tamara invited 5 fewer friends than Adelina. Should be Adeline, I think. I don't know. The two girls. Together they invited 47 guests. How many guests did each girl invite? So let's look at our first sentence. They're throwing a birthday party for their friend, okay? Does that give us any information other than the scenario? No. So let's look at our next sentence. Tamara invited 5 fewer friends than Adelina. So we know Tamara invited 5 fewer friends than Adelina. So we have however many Adelina invited minus 5. Okay? And then, look at our next one. We have together they invited 47 guests. So the total of Tamara and Adelina was 47. Okay? Now I have my two equations. Now if I look, I can either solve it so that way my equations, my variables line up. So if I do that, I could subtract, I could redo this one. I could subtract Adelina from both sides. Okay? And then I could go negative 5 equals t minus a, and I could add these two together. So why don't we do that? 47 plus a negative 5 is 42 equals 2t, and our a plus a negative a cancels out. So t equals 21. So Tamara invited 21 guests. And then Adelina, we just have to plug that t in up here, and we can solve. So we know 47 equals 21 plus a. Sorry, that should be capital A. 21 plus A. If we solve, do minus 21. We have 26 equals A. So Tamara invited 21 guests, and Adelina invited 26 guests. Okay? So that's one way, or maybe you said that you remember from yesterday when it's solved for a variable, you could take this whole thing and plug it in right there. And if you did that method, that is also fine, okay? This is the last example for you to try. Good luck. Hopefully you determined that Marcus earned $21 and Anissa earned $22.50. Okay. If you have any questions at all on how to do elimination by addition and subtraction, please be sure to reach out to me for some help or a friend. And I hope you guys have a great night.